Joining me now to discuss the dramatic fall in Egypt's tourism is Paul Lasley. He's an award-winning travel journalist and radio host for ontravel.com. He joins us from Los Angeles. Paul, let me just first ask you, as you watch these images coming out of Egypt, what do you think about in terms of tourism?
Well, I think about the poor Egyptian people who are suffering so much from this. You know, your correspondent in Cairo and you in your summation there leading into this really pointed up the problems. They're predicting about 9.5 million visitors this year. I think it will be lower than that. And, you know, when you think that 11 to 12% of the GDP of Egypt is generated by tourism, this is a huge economic hit. But it's more than just the national economic hit. It's the hit on the individuals, those people who work on those Nile boats, who work as guides at Luxor, that work in all aspects of the tourism industry, and then it filters down. The people that they buy their bread from suffer because there's less money in the economy because of tourism. But it's a very difficult situation right now, and I think it's anybody's guess where this is all going because it's rapidly evolving. And for tourism, that's a very, very difficult thing. Tourism thrives under a stable, fairly predictable economic situation and political situation, and this is anything but that.
Paul, the interim president has to be looking at these images going out of these clashes and thinking, geez, this is going to not help us in terms of luring visitors back. What needs to happen in order to lure visitors to Egypt? Obviously, stability is key.
Well, stability is key, Mike, but more than that, I think we've got to see some images of happy people celebrating, perhaps, and not being afraid of where they're going, and and this kind. And of course, the Army has a role in this because there are two ways of looking at it. Tourists look sometimes at the Army and say, "Wow, it's great to have all of that security." They also look at it and say, "Wow, what's going on here, and should we be worried?" So really, it's a matter of perception. And Egypt is going to recapture the tourism market by demonstrating that sense of stability and the perception that it is a safe, great country. Remember, the Egyptians are just incredible people. They love visitors. They love to share their culture with them. And after all, it's one of the world's oldest surviving cultures.
Paul, I love my profession, journalism, but we tend to chase the ugly stuff, and sometimes it gives kind of a narrow picture of things. So I want to ask you, are there places in Egypt that are safe and that tourists shouldn't be scared away from?
Well, right now, the beaches, Sharm el-Sheikh and the beaches and resorts along the Red Sea have not seen any problems whatsoever, and rates are very good right now. I think it's very much an individual matter whether you want to travel to Egypt, but yes, the Red Sea resorts are safe as far as anybody can tell. And the other thing is places like Luxor and the Valley of the Kings and other major tourist attractions in Egypt have not really seen any problems. I was reading this morning in one of the British newspapers that someone who was just back from Luxor said it was the best time he'd ever had there. There were no crowds.
Well, Paul Lasley, that's another important message to get across. Thank you so much for joining us from Los Angeles. Certainly appreciate it.